So I just was in Vietnam for a week visiting, mainly Ho Chi Minh City and then Vung Tau or Vung Tau, Vung Tau. I don't know exactly how to say it, but there were several things I've learned, lessons maybe I've learned, but I'm going to just share it. Um, Take it as whatever you want to take it as. But one of the observations I made, and or one of the bigger observations I made is Western women versus the Asian, women or the in the Asian countries kind of interact when approached. So this is a small example. In Ho Chi Minh, there's this tall building, 80, 90 floors, whatever. I don't remember exactly, called Landmark 81. So somebody recommended, I went on this bike tour, and the girl who took me on the tour, she's also kind of like they do this like extra service. They give you a number and then like ask them, you can message them and ask them, hey, where should I visit and all that stuff. They, you know, give you a recommendation where to go and all, which I thought is like amazing because they're not getting any money for it. I guess it's more of an extra service, whatever the case is. But anyway, so I went to this location and here I was trying to, essentially go up the floor, but was confused where to go and all that stuff. And then they were essentially saying, similarly like me, there were five other women trying to go there. I was a guy and five other women. Three were essentially, yeah, seems like French, and two were Japanese women, right? Here's the beauty of, when I go on to explain. The three French were not all white. One was white, one was a black girl, and one was essentially a Muslim girl because she was wearing the hijab and everything. And, I was trying to ask them something that kind of immediately, like, they were like, oh, don't talk to me kind of vibe, right? And then I talked to the Japanese and we were talking like, and then although they didn't understand, they were very friendly, kind of smiling. And then I kind of figured out where to go and they were like very happy. Oh, great, you figured out. And that kind of struck me, the big difference, right? How friendly these women were versus the essentially the Western women. Like same thing I see in US, right? When I'm in US, it's like the vibe you get mostly is don't approach, don't talk to me kind of vibe most of the time. Um, and I think that's the general notion most men kind of get. Not always. I'm not saying all women are like that. There are some friendly women. I'm not saying that, but among single women, that's what I'm saying, right? That's the vibe you get. And then I get this, comments from single women say, "Oh, nobody approaches in public." Guess why? Maybe that's the reason, right? When you give out the vibe like, hey, don't approach, or hey, you're gonna like do something to me kind of a approach, then obviously, people are not going to approach you. And that's the vibe you get. And that's why only people do dating apps, seems like. That's one. And then there was another instance where, a young girl sitting, at a cafe, very, she was pretty nice looking and all that stuff. And I just like she looked at, smiled, and I said, "Hey, great, you're looking very pretty. Have a great day." And she was smiling, "Thank you." And I did it very casually. I mean, I had no intention of asking her out or anything like that. It was just like she was pretty girl, cool, and she was friendly. So I just wanted to compliment her and move on. That's it, right? There's nothing else to it, right? And I don't think I would have done that in US that easily. Because again, the vibe, right? The vibe you get is like, okay, you're going to intrude on them, that they're going to give this vibe of like, you being a weirdo or something. Again, it totally might be just my feeling, but that's the thing I get from other people like, hey, it's, hard to approach women here, so on and so forth. But it's not just US. Like I've lived in Barcelona for 4 weeks or so. And that's the same vibe I got even in Barcelona versus although I think people there were more friendlier, but still the women, it's the same thing. You get from the West and it seems like I'm a, Asian, whatever, they seem more friendly, open to just having a conversation. It doesn't matter, if you're trying to hit on them or not. Just being friendly, right? It's nothing to do with asking them out. Because even after I went up and we talked, I took pictures of these Japanese girls and they were very friendly. I talked to them, I complimented them, very friendly. They didn't know too much English, so I kind of couldn't talk much. I gave them some recommendation for places to visit and things to do, kind of, and then moved on, right? But it struck me like how cool they were, friendly they were, and then, talked to me, and smiled at me, all that stuff was just, the other three girls I saw again, when I saw them, like they were like kind of kind of deal. I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to talk to you. Anyway, right? So that's one. And the second observation was how much Vietnam, everything everywhere I went, other than one place like the Mekong Delta area, everything was about, death, blood, how much, Vietnamese fought against other, occupations, the Vietnamese War or Vietnam War and the communist regime. And then, so much misery, all that stuff. I'm like, wait, that can't be the only thing about Vietnam. There's much more to Vietnam than just death and misery. There's, obviously, great things, in Vietnam history that, that has been there beyond the Chinese being their rulers or, French, and then obviously a little bit of American occupation, so on and so forth. Much more to that than just, those stuff, right? And that kind of disappointed me. I kind of wanted to know more of the authentic history, like the true authentic history of Vietnam, just other than the occupation and them being ruled and all that. And then a lot of communist propaganda I heard, right? And then the third is really how, regardless of the opportunity or mainly communist regime there, how much, you know, I guess capitalism was still there in the small business side. All these shops and small business owners, very enterprising, very hardworking. You could see that. So that kind of like, kind of amazed me, although I guess there's not like a huge big businesses, huge number of big businesses or multinational companies, a lot of multinational. Hence, their obviously per capita income is pretty low, which kind of a surprise. It's 3 times lower than India. I thought India was a little bit lower than Vietnam, but no, it wasn't. Actually, India is way better off than Vietnam as far as per capita is concerned. And then the lastly was how much Vietnamese eat outside, or at least in Ho Chi Minh City. I don't know if it's I feel like even Wong Tao, when I went there, it's kind of felt like same thing, a lot of culture of eating outside because food is cheap outside. And I also found out even the hotels are cheaper than renting a house or apartment. So it was a different of living there, it seems like. Some of the people I met, they were living in hotels, better off than even like living in their own apartment or whatever the case was. And, obviously, going from US, you kind of appreciate how much US has, how much we take for granted. That obviously is, I guess, anybody who has traveled to any kind of like the underdeveloped or not so developed countries, like I'm from India, sometimes, I feel that, but although India now is kind of gone different, way different, quite developed, not at obviously anywhere close to US level. It's in some areas it might be getting there, um, versus what media reported in the media, right? It depends, it depends on where you go, which kind of neighborhood you live. So some of the neighborhood can seem like, wow, I mean, India's not what it used to be. So anyway, those are the thoughts. Like the biggest thing again I felt was that how the attitude of people. Like I felt the Vietnamese people were very friendly. I enjoyed, essentially everywhere you go, very friendly people, men, women, whatever, doesn't matter. Very friendly, and then pretty secure, security wise, secure. You can go anytime. I've seen women, young women, like, kind of going anywhere, like 1 a.m., whatever, into dark, dark places. Very secure. I think it's more secure than even US. I felt like anyway. So anyway, those are the things, thoughts, biggest was that whole thing about how women, I saw the behavior, quite contrasting behavior, how approachable, how friendly women, especially were there versus, let's say, any Western side, right? I can even compare India. India obviously is very conservative, so it's a completely different world there. So I guess we can't compare. I can't, you can't compare. But I'm talking about Western world versus that. Like because not only Vietnam, because I met these Japanese girls who were very friendly. Versus you don't see that too often in US, right? People being very friendly and talking and smiling and whatever, and when you approach them, versus like, hey, kind of deal. All right. Anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. So, you know, I don't know what you can do with it, but hey, maybe it'll help you go to Vietnam and enjoy the stay there.